Don't know where our future would be if he's not here. How do we stay strong? Only we can save us from what? Oh, yeah. Think about a change. Show our people love. Oh, yeah. My people, hold your head up. My people, don't take it back. My people, rise. My people, rise. My people, we march side by side. We're doing all right. My people, rise.
I'm Tavis, Smiley. Glad to have you with us in this hour, third and final hour of our program today. We are joined in this hour for the hour by the founder and director of Civil Rights Corps, Alec Karakatsanis. He is back to take us inside his new book, Copaganda, How Police and the Media Manipulate Our News. I said at the top of our program a couple hours ago that we had a number of authors on today. Excuse me, and I love the titles of their book. You know what you're going to get when you open up this book called Copaganda, How Police and the Media Manipulate Our News. I love a book title that tells you exactly what you're going to get. Before I get into the book with Alec, let me play this first. This is Donald Trump not too long ago talking about policing in America as he sees it. This was Trump speaking at a White House event. A law enforcement roundtable that the White House hosted. Here's Donald Trump.
In recent years, far-left radicals have vilified and targeted our nation's police with Marxist prosecutors and soft-on-crime politicians, making it impossible for you to do your jobs and do them the way you want to do them, and only you know how to do them. Under the Trump administration, those days are over. We're back in the men in blue, and we're back into blue. Very honestly, we have some of the greatest people in the country sitting right around this table. We've ended the use of lawfare against police officers and terminated unjustified federal consent decrees. I signed an executive order directing the Department of Justice to provide legal protection and financial support for officers targeted by very frivolous lawsuits. Oh, I know about frivolous lawsuits better than you do. I can tell you, I had my share of them. I ordered other federal agencies to boost funding for police recruitment, retention, and pay. And I've asked Attorney General Bondi to pursue the death penalty for anyone convicted of killing a police officer, which is very appropriate.
All right, Alec. There you have Donald Trump speaking at a White House hosted event, a law enforcement roundtable. Before I jump straight away in the book, first of all, it's good to hear your voice. Good to have you on the program. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me back.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So what did you hear in that clip of Donald Trump about the way his prism, the way he sees policing in America?
Of course, Trump is parroting to a certain base with those remarks. So I think what's striking, obviously, first and foremost, is he's sending a signal to police that they will have virtual impunity under the Trump administration. Nobody's going to be investigating them for violating people's rights. Nobody's going to be too concerned about police brutality and violence, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, it's free reign, go do what you want. This is essentially the message that he's sending to the police officers around the United States. But I think it's really, really important to understand this is already essentially the status quo. It always has been. It's status quo under Democrats. Keep in mind, the police forces in most major American cities are controlled by Democratic Party establishment politicians, and the sort of policing bureaucracy itself undergoes essentially no changes whenever there's Democrats or Republicans in power. And so the kind of propaganda that Trump is articulating there is actually very, very similar to the kind of propaganda that I discuss in the book, except I focus in the book on how the same underlying policies are actually sold and manufactured for liberal and sort of more moderate liberal audiences. So I focus a lot on how essentially, if you read like The Atlantic or the New York Times or the Washington Post, it's the very same message that Trump is offering, but it's just geared at a different audience with different kinds of stories and different kinds of words and different kinds of framings.
Because what Trump was articulating moments ago, to your point, is really already the status quo. Does that mean we should not assume that police brutality, that police misconduct will get worse in the Trump era?
I don't think we can assume really anything about police misconduct changing at all under the Trump administration. I think what we will probably see, and I think the thing to be even more scared about, is the changing behavior of other kind of vigilantes and other people kind of deputized by the police. I think there is going to be a dramatic increase in the levels of impunity and unaccountability for sort of private actors who commit lots of acts of violence and against marginalized people. And I think you'll see the Trump administration and state and local police and other so-called law enforcement. Again, I don't use the term law enforcement. I think that's a misleading term of propaganda that's designed to get you to think that, if there's a law that's broken in our society, it's going to be enforced. Meanwhile, so-called law enforcement officers only enforce some laws against some people some of the time. And what Trump is essentially saying in both in that quote and in a number of other remarks is essentially, if you brutalize the right people, which police across the country have been doing for a century and a half, then we're not going to enforce any of the constitutional or other criminal laws against you.
Yeah.
But that's really the way the criminal punishment bureaucracy has always worked. If you sell drugs or do drugs at a rich private boarding school or Yale University, you're essentially immune from anything happening to you. If you do it in a poor black neighborhood, you'll be ruthlessly crushed and you'll be put in a cage. You'll be separated from your family for decades. So I don't actually think what we're seeing is some kind of a sea change in the levels of police brutality in this country. Yeah. I think what he's signaling is a level of impunity for other people as well.
Fascinating way to read it. Hadn't thought about it in that particular way, and maybe it's both and not either or. I need to think about that for a second. It may very well be both and not either or. Vigilantes will start to rise up exponentially, and cops now have carte blanche to do what they want to do, so they behave even worse than they've been behaving. Again, it may be both and, not either or. I need to think about that. The book is called Copaganda. I love that title, Copaganda, How Police and the Media Manipulate Our News. I got a whole lot of questions for Alec in this hour, and I can't wait to get to it when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33, and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yay!
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project.
Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Are you having trouble hearing? Hearing loss can devastate the quality of your life. Now, there's an affordable fix for you or your loved one. Rated the best hearing aids of 2025 by Forbes Health, Audion Hearing has the highest quality hearing aids at the lowest prices, starting at just $98 a pair.
I actually like them better than my old $5,000 hearing aid.
I could not believe how my hearing and life changed.
Join over 1 million happy customers by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
No one wants to leave behind stress for their family. That's why a trust or a will is so important. Without one, your assets might go to the wrong people or leave out loved ones. Also, probate is long, expensive, and often avoidable with a revocable trust. Trustandwill.com makes it simple to create a personalized estate plan. A trust or will provides clarity and peace of mind. Get 20% off on your estate plan documents by visiting trustandwill.com/radio.
Less monologue, more dialogue. Tavis Smiley continues right now.
Before I get back to Alec Karakatsanis and his new book, Copaganda, How Police and the Media Manipulate Our Views, some breaking news here moments ago. It is official. I wasn't sure this was going to happen. I thought it might, but it is now official. Former Governor Andrew Cuomo is about to announce his commitment to a third-party run against Zohran Mamdani, who soundly defeated him in the Democratic primary. We had James Clyburn, a legendary Democrat, on this program a few days ago, and I asked him about this. He supported Andrew Cuomo in the primary, as did Bill Clinton, and most of a good section of the Democratic Party establishment supported Andrew Cuomo in that race in the primary, which again he lost to Zohran Mamdani. And I asked James Clyburn about that because the establishment has gone pretty hard in on Mamdani in New York City. Whatever you think of him, the establishment wing of the Democratic Party has gone in pretty hard on him. And I asked James Clyburn, I mean, if ever there were an establishment Democrat, it's James Clyburn. And I say that respectfully. He's just been around a long time. He's part of the establishment, right? So I asked him what he thought about that, and he said he was old-fashioned. He said, I ran 3 times before I ran 3 times before I won my congressional seat, which he's now had like 100 years now. But he ran 3 times before he won it. And he said, every time I lost, I endorsed my Democratic opponent in the primary. That's what Democrats do. If you run and you lose and the voters choose somebody else, you endorse the guy who beat you. That's what Democrats do. Apparently not in New York, because now you got Eric Adams, of course, running as independent. He opted out of the Democratic primary, even though he's been a long-time Democrat, lifelong Democrat. Andrew Cuomo, lifelong Democrat. He's now running as an independent against Zohran Mamdani. So the ways in which the establishment is fraying is one way to look at it. But the way in which they have gotten their backs up and are determined to make sure that Mamdani does not win that New York City mayor's race if they can is interesting. I wasn't sure Andrew Cuomo was going to do this, and there are a number of ways to read it. You know, do you really want your career to end with a loss in a primary and then a loss in the general election? The other way to look at it is, obviously he's made a decision that he thinks with this vote being split 3 or 4 different ways, 5 different ways actually, because there's Curtis Lee, a Republican candidate, and the other guy, Jim, whose name I can't recall. There are like 5 of them in this race still. And perhaps Andrew Cuomo is calculating that if the vote is going to split 5 different ways, if he comes out on top, there you have it. So it's official. Andrew Cuomo, according to the New York Times, just reported that he's expected to announce his commitment to a third-party run against Zohran Mamdani in this New York mayor's race. So it's going to get interesting in New York, and the whole nation will be watching it. Not so much because it's New York, although they think they are the center of the universe. I ain't mad at them, but because again, it just speaks to the nature, the fragile nature. We were talking in our last hour about the fragile nature of our democracy. What about the fragile nature of the Democratic Party? We can do a whole hour on that, or 2 or 3. But again, I digress for now. But Andrew Cuomo is announcing, or soon to announce, that he is going to stay in this race as a third-party candidate against Zohran Mamdani. There's that. Again, now, in this hour, back to our conversation with Alec about his book, Copaganda, How Police and the Media Manipulate Our News. There are a couple of things you said earlier that I want to go back to. And again, there may be some who just tuned in, so it's worth repeating anyway. But I was fascinated. Obviously, I do this every day for 3 hours and been a media guy for 30 plus years and written a bunch of books myself. So I really believe, obviously, in language, and I more importantly believe that language matters, that words matter. And I was fascinated by your sharing with us that you do not use the term law enforcement. You do not use the term law enforcement. It's a misnomer. Tell me a little bit more about that, Alec, and I'll push forward.
So it's very similar to how the United States changed the name of the Department of War to the Department of Defense. The names of things really matter. And the people who are in control of these institutions understand the propaganda value of certain labels and certain names. So once it became a little bit taboo to do wars of imperial aggression around the world, they decided to frame most of the U.S. military activity across the world as defensive rather than offensive. Similarly, the police used to be much more open about what they were doing, right? So when the police forces, as we know them in the modern era, came about as a result of militias that used to catch runaway enslaved people and also striking workers who were brutalized by these squads, which sort of then became the police in most major urban areas. They were used to work on behalf of the factory owners and bosses to sort of like discipline labor strikers and stuff like that, right? They were much more open about what they were doing. But after World War II, especially, police across the United States started to shift their labeling and sort of propaganda approach to what they did, and they started to frame themselves as being about public safety. And that's the period where the term law enforcement started gaining a lot of traction. And the idea, of course, is to make people think that all the laws are enforced and all the laws are enforced equally. And in reality, only some laws are enforced against some people. So if you're a company that throws illegal chemicals into the water or spews toxic chemicals into the air, and by the way, those things kill about 5 to 10 times more people in America every year than all homicide combined. So huge, massive law breaking, millions of illegal acts, right? Those are hardly ever enforced. When I was researching for the book, I just took one example from a couple of years ago. I counted all of the federal prosecutions in that year, and they did 23 prosecutions the entire year for federal environmental crimes out of millions of crimes, right? That same year, the federal government prosecuted 23,000 nonviolent drug cases. So these are people who are constantly choosing which crimes to enforce against which people and which neighborhoods, right? And so to portray them as some kind of neutral law enforcement is to really obscure that there are people making real choices about which communities are going to be targeted and which communities are going to be allowed to break the law.
Let me ask a broad question that occurs to me as you share that response with us. How you were talking about your research for the text, and I'm curious as to the backstory here, as to why it is and how it is that you found yourself in this lane. It's obviously your calling, your vocation. How you found yourself in a lane that automatically puts you against an institution in this country, long-standing, that I think many Americans still believe, are putting themselves on the line, putting their lives on the line. They still, most of us, I think, still believe in that, protect and serve mantra. My point is that, on demand, you are pushing back against an institution in this country, and that can't be easy to do, Alec.
It's very, very difficult because it's a very powerful institution. I got this started in this work as a public defender. I was representing people who were accused of crimes who couldn't afford to pay for a lawyer. And I started seeing a lot of just systemic injustice that we weren't able to fight in each of these individual cases. And I got very, very lucky. I was given a grant by Harvard Law School to quit my job and to start a nonprofit civil rights organization that would go around the country and look at a lot of the unjust practices, not just the police actually, but we really focused on the unjust practices by judges in courts and prosecutors, right? And our cases have, in the last 10 years, have gotten hundreds of thousands of people out of jail who were in jail illegally. For example, all over the country, people are jailed after they're arrested, but before they're convicted of anything, just because their families don't have enough money to pay money bail.
Yep.
And that's unconstitutional. And so we started winning these cases across the country, and I started seeing how the same unjust things were happening in community after community after community, and I saw that there were very particular groups of people that were benefiting and profiting from this. Like, for example, the multi-billion-dollar for-profit money bail industry, which only exists in the U.S. and the Philippines, right? And so once we started bringing these cases, I started to get very interested in how are these practices, which are so unjust and so unfair and actually make us less safe, how are they being sold to the public? What kinds of news practices and articles and stories and words and phrases? What is the propaganda mechanism by which so many people who want safer, more just communities for themselves and their families, how are all these people coming to support or at least to not fully understand what's going on? And that's what led me to write the book.
Yeah. That leads me to the second institution. The first institution that Alec is taking on, of course, is that of police. But the second institution is awfully powerful. It's called the media. And we were talking actually during the break a moment ago about the cover of the book. I'm always talking about book covers. I've written a few books myself, of course. And I can give you the particulars about what makes for a great book cover, what makes for a not so great book cover, and there are many in either category that I talk to on this show routinely. This is a beautiful book cover. Of course, you can't see it; it's radio. The book is all blue. The back, the book is blue for obvious reasons, and it has the word Copaganda, small c, Copaganda, as if it's a word in the dictionary. It is a noun. And the cover of the book displays that Copaganda. You've got the syllables so you can pronounce it correctly. It's got noun, and then it says how police and the media manipulate our news. That is the definition, right? How police and the media manipulate our news. It's a beautiful cover, by the way, Alec. I love the way they sort of laid this out. But it puts into focus this second institution that you are going after in this regard, and that is the media. And just again, broadly, before we get more narrow here, I don't think that when people think about, which is why the book is so amazing, and that's why I love the title, Copaganda, I don't think that most of us think about the police in connection to the media or the media in connection to police. We think, just like I said earlier, we think of the police as those who are protecting and serving us. They volunteer to put their lives on the line. You know how that narrative goes. We love the men in blue, yada, yada, yada. The same is true, although less true, I think, now more than ever, about the media. Their job is to do unbiased reporting on the news of the day. That's what their job is. But you've got these two people, these two groups, these two institutions in sort of a incestuous relationship, if I can put it that way.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people don't understand this. Let's just take Los Angeles as an example. The Los Angeles sheriff alone has 42 full-time public relations officers. The Los Angeles Police Department has another 25 full-time officers. So just the top two police departments in Los Angeles, I'm not even counting the several other dozens of police departments or the DA's offices or the mayor or the police unions or the private companies that do PR for the police. I'm just talking about full-time cops. That's 67 in just the top two police departments. In Chicago, Illinois, there used to be, about 10 years ago, there were only 4 full-time PR officers at the Chicago police. Now there's over 50. The NYPD has almost 90. Okay, so the policing public relations industry is monumental, and it affects every single article you see or news story you see in the nightly news. There is somebody behind it, and you always have to ask yourself, how did this story become news? Out of the millions of things that happened the night before, how did the news come to choose these 8 or 10 things to tell me about last night? And who benefits from that? And then who benefits from who's interviewed? Who are the sources in these stories? Whose voice is lifted up as an expert, right? Is it a low-income family who's been targeted by the police? Or is it a former cop who's telling you that everything the police did was just fine, right? So the broader, I think, point, though, is that police are, and I have to keep saying this, it's not just the police.
Sure.
The police are a small part of the punishment bureaucracy, which includes prosecutors and judges and jail guards and prison guards and probation officers and parole officers and defense lawyers and all of the companies that profit at every single stage, from the construction of the jails and prisons to the surveillance technology to the prison and jail telecom industry, right? So I have a number of cases where I'm representing children who are suing the multi-billion-dollar prison and jail telecom industry because they're around the country. They are paying sheriffs money to stop in-person family visits on the theory that if you stop children from visiting their parents who are in jail, the families will be desperate enough to spend more money on phone and video calls, right? So there's millions of kids around the country who can't even hug their mom and their dad, who can't even hold their hand, can't even look into their eye, just because there's a multi-billion-dollar industry that's cropped up that has monopoly phone contracts with jails.
Yeah.
So the news media is influenced at every turn by all of these groups. It's not just the police, and I think that's a really important point.
When we come forward, I want to no naivete here, but I want to just give Alec all the room he needs, all the space he needs, all the canvas he needs to illustrate his answer to the question I want to pose now that he'll address when we come forward, which is why the police need so many spinmeisters. That number of spinmeisters in New York and the way that number has grown in Chicago, the number he laid out here in L.A. Thankfully, this program is heard in all three of these cities that Alec just references. But why do the cops need so many spinmeisters? Why? That's the question for Alec Karakatsanis when we come forward. Talk about his new book, Copaganda, How Police and the Media Manipulate Our News. Delighted to have him right now on Tavis Smiley.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. 10 days after historic floods hit Texas Hill County, over 160 people remain missing. Kerrville officials say rain is slowing search efforts near Lake Nimitz. Kerrville Assistant Manager Michael Hornez says they are still searching.
They have a hard time searching in there because that water is you can't see through it.
The statewide death toll has now climbed past 130. The HBCU community is demanding the release of Morehouse grad Alex Maganda, detained by ICE in Texas. Supporters say his arrest highlights the risks Black immigrants face. The Free Alex Maganda movement is gaining national attention. And T-Mobile has dropped its DEI programs under pressure from the Trump administration. The move, praised by some federal officials, has sparked backlash from civil rights leaders who warn it threatens workplace equity. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers head into the All-Star break after taking 2 of 3 from the Giants in San Francisco. They scored 3 runs after 2 outs in the 11th inning Sunday to beat the Giants 5-2. The Dodgers will have 4 players in the All-Star game Tuesday night in Atlanta. Catcher Will Smith, first baseman Freddie Freeman, designated hitter Shohei Ohtani, and pitcher Clayton Kershaw. The Angels ended the first half of the season with a 5-1 loss at home to Arizona. Even though the Angels are 2 games below 500 at 47-49, they have 6 more wins than what they had last season at the All-Star break. They were 14 games under 500 at the break last year. The Angels are 11-10 with interim manager Ray Montgomery. Montgomery took over for Ron Washington on June 20th when Washington stepped down because of undisclosed health reasons. Washington, one of 2 black managers in Major League Baseball, will not return this season. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon right after Tavis Smiley here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon right after Tavis Smiley for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show only on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley show conversation with James Farr. At one point, James said something that caught me off guard. Not because it wasn't true, but because it is. Black Altadena is gone. I know it may seem stupid and non-productive, but I stopped in that moment listening to Tavis and James. I broke down and cried. In the back of my mind, I told myself we can bring it back like it was. But James Farr's reality check hit me like a ton of bricks. My community is being murdered. I said murdered, not by the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire, but by the people we elect to protect us, and by greedy and gatekeeping nonprofits who cannot see the forest for the trees. For the first time since the fire, I truly feel and understand my wife's inconsolable pain. Because I'm struggling to find a path to recovery and at least some form of normalcy. My community is crumbling right in front of my face. Lack of funding to rebuild is slowly destroying us. Many of us can no longer hold out, and developers are gobbling up our property. When I hear voices like Tavis Smiley and James Farr speak truth to power on KBLA Talk 1580, it reminds me that we're not crazy, just unheard. Make no mistake here, KBLA delegation, this is war, and we the people of Black Altadena are losing. It's like waiting for reparation. Not gonna happen, brother. In this new orange man world, no one, no entity is persuaded by right or wrong. There is no consequence for doing the wrong thing, and no accolades or support for doing the right thing. Will war-torn Black Altadena survive? Your guess is as good as mine. But what have I got to lose? I'm in my 70s and don't have time to wait. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once suggested that riots break out when people have no hope. But there is nothing left to burn down in Altadena. I wish I could say I remain hopeful that my beloved community will rise again like a phoenix from the ashes. I wish I could. With a KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Pasadena Community Coalition at gmail.com. Reach out to me. As always, we welcome your feedback.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Alec Karakatsanis. His new book is called Copaganda, How Police and the Media Manipulate Our News. We were talking, I often say, Alec, sometimes the best conversations happen off air. So my crew and I here in the studio were just talking about, we were extending my dialogue with you off air, and now here you and I are back on air. We were talking off air about all these crime procedurals, and one of my colleagues made the point that that's how they feel, that these crime procedurals, and they're on every TV network all day long, but these procedurals themselves are part of the Copaganda, as one of my colleagues sees it. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I completely agree. They portray policing in a way that has absolutely no resemblance to what policing actually is. Let me just give you a couple of examples. Sure. There's a lot to say about this. But the actual police spend only 4% of all of their time on things that the police call violent crime. So That's 96% of their time is spent on nonviolent stuff, right? That's not the image that you get from these police procedurals.
Mm-hmm.
A second thing I want to say, and this is really an important point to understand exactly what I mean by Copaganda. But these police procedurals do sort of three things that I talk about a lot with respect to the news media, but the police procedurals do them as well. The first thing that they do, the first component of Copaganda, is they narrow our conception of safety and threat. They want us afraid of a certain group of people who look a certain way, right? Like Malcolm X said really brilliantly half a century ago or more. He said, if you pay attention to the news and the TV a lot, the news will have you afraid of the most powerless people and not afraid at all of the people in power.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm paraphrasing Malcolm X, but that's essentially this brilliant observation he made. That's what these police procedurals do. They want you afraid of poor people, of people of color, particularly black people, of immigrants, and of strangers. Even though the vast bulk of violence in our society and sexual violence is perpetrated by people who know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch a lot of these police procedurals, you actually aren't worried about the biggest threats to your safety: lead pollution for your children and the soil and the water. Wage theft is $50 billion a year. That's like 5 times all police recorded property crime combined. Or tax evasion is like $1 trillion a year. That's like 60 times all the property crime that the police and the FBI count combined. Or like I said earlier, water and air pollution, et cetera, et cetera. These are things that are actually destroying the most marginalized and poorest communities in this country, or various types of white-collar crime, et cetera, et cetera. You get the point.
Yeah.
All of these shows kind of make it seem like the police are, focused on really only like violence committed by the poorest and most marginalized people in our society. The second thing that they do a lot is these shows contribute to this sense that these crimes are always increasing. So many people watch these shows, and every year, if you look at like the public polling, people think crime is up in the United States for the last 25 years, every single year. But every single year except one, crime was down. So interestingly, when you ask people about their own neighborhood, they're more likely to be accurate. But when their perception is skewed by their, consumption of these TV shows, they think that crime is not up in their own neighborhood, but it's up everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the third thing is the most important point, which is that these shows on TV, they make us think in ways that are both overt and very subtle. They make us think that the solution to all of our fears is always the police, prosecution, and prison. That's the solution to every harm. That's the solution to police violence itself, right? The solution is just more and more and more and more money invested in police, prosecution, and prison, which is pretty incredible because the United States spends way more money than any society in the history of the modern world on police, prosecution, and prisons. If those things made us safe, we'd have the safest society in world history, but we don't.
Yeah. I was reading a number of pieces, and of course, including reading your book, preparing for this conversation, and I was reading a piece about the ways in which the Supreme Court of the United States, in ruling after ruling after ruling, has also basically been part of this Copaganda, giving the police everything they want and need, and then some, Alec.
Absolutely. I mean, the Supreme Court, and I have to say, it's not just police. It's also prosecutors and judges. These are two overlooked groups of people. But when the Supreme Court created out of thin air this idea of qualified immunity, which makes it much harder to sue the police if they violate your rights or to sue other government employees, they also created something even stronger called absolute immunity for prosecutors and judges. So it's virtually impossible if a prosecutor or a judge violates your rights in the course of their duties. It's virtually impossible to sue them. And people don't appreciate what this means. What this means is that there are millions of constitutional and other legal violations. Many of them are crimes as well, perpetrated every year by punishment bureaucrats within this system. Police, prosecutors, judges, probation and parole officers, jail guards, prison guards, and there's no functional way to sue them for it. because of these doctrines that they've set up. And it has created a situation where essentially if you want to brutalize somebody and you're in these positions, and of course these bureaucracies tend to select for people who engage in that kind of behavior, but also they cultivate a certain otherization and normalization and desensitization to violence. And so these systems itself lead people to do really horrific things just in the course of their work. There's essentially no way to hold them accountable.
Yeah. I think you've already answered this question indirectly, although I didn't get a chance to pose it directly, even though I teased it moments ago, and that is the notion of these spinmeisters. You laid out some powerful data that made all of us sort of pay attention about the number of spinmeisters these police departments have at the ready in L.A., in Chicago, in New York. Again, no naivete in asking, but why do they need so many spinmeisters, so many media spinmeisters?
I think the easiest way to understand why the police and prosecutors need so many spinmeisters, as you call them, I like that term, is that they're fundamentally trying to convince people of a lie. And that lie is that the path to a safer society is not more equality and less poverty, more health care, better housing, more after-school programs for kids, better early childhood education and free daycare. It's not music and theater and arts programs. It's not cleaning up the lead that's poisoning the soil, which, by the way, is associated with significant increases in crime. None of those things. But the path is more investment in guns, cages, and surveillance. That's a really hard argument to make if you're basing it on the facts, because the evidence is overwhelming. So their position is kind of like the position that the fossil fuel companies or the tobacco companies were in, where they were trying to prop up a incredibly damaging, destructive set of industries against all of the available evidence. And so what did they do? Well, they spent a tremendous amount of money on sort of essentially what amount to massive public relations operations, or in I think it's easier to understand them as sort of propaganda operations, right? And that's why they need all this stuff, because they're fundamentally trying to convince us of something that all of the evidence tells us is untrue.
Yeah. When we come forward, Alec has said something now 2 times. I heard it both times. I've been waiting to get to it. I want to get to it. He's mentioned lead a couple of times, and we're talking about crime. He doesn't mean that kind of lead. He's talking about lead in the soil and its connection to crime, which fascinates me. I want to ask him what he's talking about when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you, thank you.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement. Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Hey, listen to this. All I needed was a new starter. Got a great deal on eBay. Did it myself.
Yeah, that's cool. But how about the soft purr of an upgraded exhaust when it fits just right?
For me, it's the little things, like these new windshield wipers from eBay I installed.
From small fixes to big upgrades, eBay has all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Why'd I go to the doctor? My heart would race just taking my son to practice. It didn't feel right. So I got checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Alec, you made this connection a couple times. Unpack it for me right quick. This connection between lead and crime, and not that kind of lead. You mean lead in the soil, as I said earlier.
That's right. So I think it's not just in the soil, unfortunately. I think we all remember the Flint water crisis.
Sure.
There's lead pipes all over this country, and also there's lead paint in houses. And so many young people, particularly little children, are exposed to catastrophic amounts of lead that really affect their development of their brains, and that have been linked to a number of things. So reduction in IQ, et cetera, and now people think reduction in impulse control, and has been shown in a number of studies that reduction in lead exposure. So there was massive reductions in lead exposure over the last half century with the phasing out of leaded gasoline, which was a big source of lead poisoning for people, particularly in low-income communities, because they're often located in areas that get higher amounts of this kind of pollution. And so you can study sort of the effects of all this stuff on things like crime rates. And lead is actually heavily correlated with it. But because most of the news coverage about this stuff talks about crime and does not juxtapose crime with things that actually cause crime, like healthcare, access to healthcare, or lead poisoning, or early childhood education, right? So one of the biggest factors correlated with crime in recent years is whether that state expanded Medicaid or not, right? So these are things that are actually like significant drivers of interpersonal harm in our society, but the news media doesn't focus on that. So news media associates crime with whether there were 12 cops on patrol or 9 cops on patrol, or whether the prosecutor prosecutes 52% of cases or 47% of cases. All of that is propaganda. Those things have no meaningful effect on levels of crime in our society. And to give you an example of Chicago again, because I think it's a great example, Chicago is one of the cities that actually does have a lead abatement program, particularly in low-income Black neighborhoods in Chicago. And there's a lot of lead exposure in the pipes, especially in Chicago. And so they have a lead abatement program, but the city is so poorly funded it over the years that it's not scheduled to finish abating the lead for 1,000 years. So at the same time, there's just headline after headline after headline in the Chicago news about violent crime, and they've been dramatically increasing their policing budget every single year for decades. And it's this kind of thing that I'm focused on in the book, because we're so heavily propagandized into thinking that the police have some major influence on violent crime, we are not investing in the things that actually would reduce levels of violence in our community. That's one example of that, late abatement. And instead, we're investing in stuff that is actually increasing violence in the short, medium, and long term, which is what we know the police do.
Speaking of crime rates, when we come forward in our remaining moments with Alec, I do want to ask him a very simple but straightforward question, which is why he keeps telling us that crime rates are down, but I know that incarcerations are up. There's a disconnect there. If crime is down, why are incarceration rates up? We'll put that to Alec Karakatsanis when we come forward in our remaining moments with him, discussing his book, Copaganda, How Police and the Media Manipulate Our News.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
Mayfresh Daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I have 3 minutes left in this hour, just 3 minutes. I'm going to yield the balance of my time to my friend and brother, Alec Karakatsanis. His book is called Copaganda, How Police and the Media Manipulate Our News. Earlier in this conversation, Alec, you made the point that you don't use the term law enforcement. It's a misnomer. You unpacked that quite nicely. You prefer instead the punishment bureaucracy, not law enforcement, but the punishment bureaucracy, which leads me to offer as my exit question. You can close as you will, sir, how it is that crime can be down, but incarceration rates are up.
The easy answer is that incarceration never had and never will have anything to do with levels of violence or crime in a society. Incarceration rates go up and down on the basis of political choices. So there are other reasons that this country embarked on a massive incarceration boom right? To the point where we now incarcerate black people 6 times the rate of South Africa at the height of apartheid. That's not because people in this country are, suddenly got more evil in 1970 or 80, right? We now incarcerate 5 to 10 times more people in this country than we did for our history up until 1980. It's not because, crime suddenly changed in the 70s and 80s. It's because policy changed. And sort of mass incarceration benefits certain segments of our society, and that's how you have to understand crime rates. That's why they have nothing to do with levels of incarceration, except to the extent that incarceration actually increases crime a little bit. The other thing I just wanted to say before we go, and I'm so grateful to you for having me on, is all of the royalties from the book are donated to charity. They're donated to an amazing charity, the Los Angeles Community Action Network, and it's Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. So if you buy a copy of the book, all the money will be going to an amazing organization that works with unhoused people in Skid Row and Los Angeles. And it's just part of our broader goal as a civil rights organization and as a civil rights lawyer. We're trying to get these ideas out there. And that's why we also have free copies available for anybody in prison, and also for any teacher who doesn't think their students can afford it. So people can reach out to me, and hopefully they'll enjoy the book.
This is what I call a work and a witness. I use that phrase all the time, but it is so true of Alec Karakatsanis. It's a work and a witness, and I celebrate him and always delighted to have him back on this program. He's the founder and director of Civil Rights Corps, and they're doing some pretty amazing work, as he just described for you. I close with this quote from Michelle Alexander, author of the perennial best-selling book, the New York Times, the New Jim Crow, rather. That book just continues to sell, right? The New Jim Crow. She writes that Alec exposes our criminal injustice system for what it is, a bureaucracy of punishment propped up by a biased media machine that feeds mass incarceration. And then she says this: after Copaganda, you will never read the news the same way again. I think that's true. I hope that's true even after this conversation about the book, Copaganda, How Police and the Media Manipulate Our News. Alec, you've done it again, my friend. Thank you for this great work and witness, and always an honor to have you on this program.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Just like that, 3 hours gone. Back here tomorrow. Until then, thanks for tuning in to Tavis, Smiley, and as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. 10 days after historic floods hit Texas Hill County, over 160 people remain missing. Kerrville officials say rain is slowing search efforts near Lake Nimitz. Kerrville Assistant Manager Michael Hornez says they are still searching.
They have a hard time searching in there because that water is you can't see through it.
The statewide death toll has now climbed past 130. The HBCU community is demanding the release of Morehouse grad Alex Maganda, detained by ICE in Texas. Supporters say his arrest highlights the risks black immigrants face. The Free Alex Maganda movement is gaining national attention. And T-Mobile has dropped its DEI programs under pressure from the Trump administration. The move, praised by some federal officials, has sparked backlash from civil rights leaders who warn it threatens workplace equity. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Right now, there are young